Discover how smarter project insights can lead to better project outcomes.
So before we jump into this episode 100, Val, we thought we'd, sort of take a look back over season 4 and just kind of remember the fun times of season 4. But we just wanted to also, I guess, pause and thank all the listeners. To reach 100 episodes, I think is truly humbling and amazing. I don't know if we truly felt in the beginning, Val, that we'd ever reach 100. What did you think?
No way. No chance. I think we started off in cars and obviously in the back of wherever, but it was prompted by our supporters and our fans and our followers and sponsors, and we really did get to a place where actually this could be something fun. And now it's just at a place where it's growing every month. Every month we're booked out.
Agreed. Every week we are there with you folks. This will be the final one for season 4. We'll take a couple of weeks break for the end of the year, and then we'll start again in January. But on that note, I guess we'll also just wish you a fantastic Christmas and New Year festive season with your loved ones. Hope you stay safe. Hope you all stay well, and keep sending us the feedback. We love all of the feedback that you do give to us. But quickly, let's just go through, Val. So we started off season 4 with Christina Henkai on 4D planning and visualization, and Christina's amazing, doing a thing, and she ended off lovely with a Buddhist quote. That was my favorite for that episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And model-based planning is what I remember when I spoke to her on that episode. Followed by that, we had the next, which was the 4 moves in the VUCA world of projects with Debbie Sawanarayan. Hopefully I got that right. She was fantastic as well. I still remember the VUCA and even the dance from previous seasons. And she was just lovely, and she's still lovely. I still speak to her on LinkedIn almost every month. She's tagging us into something very conversational, very impactful.
Yeah, she was fantastic, and she had we had a lot of fun conversation with her as well. And then we were privileged to have Bryn Lockett and Adam Kingsbury on the show to launch the Integrated Project Controls and Digital Insights report. And we went into quite a few of the bits of data, KPIs, and metrics that came out of that, and was great to work with Bryn and Adam to actually launch that. And hopefully we can do that again next year.
Yeah, agree. And I'm glad they added digital insights to that. And then we're followed by why schedule quality really matters with Martin Murphy, which was great for those that wanted to get into the technical. He had a lot of energy, a lot of different views, and he was great. He could have kept talking. I think we probably could have had a part 2 for sure.
And interesting fact on that episode 79, it is one of our highest downloaded audio and watched on YouTube episodes. So folks, go check it out if you haven't checked out episode 79 with Martin Murphy. And then the most positive project manager we've ever spoken to and gotten to know, Casper Dixon. He also spoke about Lean and Six Sigma, but he was hugely positive, and he put out the advantages of his approach to that on episode 80.
Yeah, he was great, and it was great to have someone with positive energy on the spot. And then we go into a deep dive into change management in the next episode and project management with Chief Innovation Officer, I believe, at ProSci with Tim Creasy. Fantastic, again, a very popular show with a very popular guest who has come back, who will come back, that is. But it was great to actually get the spelling right and talk about ProSci in projects.
Yeah, and for anyone that's like Val, it's not ProSci, it's ProSci. But there we are. He doesn't mind, or the ProSci don't mind actually how you pronounce it. It is all good. And then we had our next episode with Sunchana Johnston. She was amazing to chat to. She had so many stories and anecdotes. That was just sort of entertainment at its best, folks. But go and have a listen to why good project planners are like gold dust on episode 82.
I love that title. Then maybe one of the biggest ones that impacted me was project management under conditions of inherent uncertainty with Mr. David Snowden. Now, I don't know. This one kind of boggled my mind. There was a lot of great things we heard. He was talking about his Kinefin framework. I'm still reading it today. It's changed my views and how I do consulting, and certainly a very strong intellect with a lot of anecdotes. And he used a lot of natural systems and big words that kind of confuffled me and realized how dumb I really am. But it was a great episode.
I agree. I just went down a few levels of dumb as well. It was just, yeah, after listening to Dave or speaking to him at least, wow, mind blown. And continuing on that theme of mind being blown, our next episode was with none other than Dr. Dan Patterson, speaking about the future of project management technology. How privileged were we to just sort of, kick the tires with Dan. It was amazing to have him on, and he did promise us he'd be back once he's figured out what the next step is in his evolution of project technology on episode 84, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we had a few tech ones, didn't we? And this one also was great. How to deliver perfect, all-engaging projects and why we actively and intentionally make a mess of them instead with Eddie Obang. Captain Eddie Obang was fantastic, a lot of energy. He talked about, what is it, caterpillars to butterflies.
Yeah.
He talked about his virtual environment called Cube, which is really game-changing. Specifically, I've seen a lot of it over the last couple of months, but really, really inspiring and great to listen to.
I agree. Eddie is great. And if you say to us we don't give you the breadth across projects, well, we do. We had Sarah Shooter up next, making law work for the construction and engineering industry. And she certainly schooled us. She knows her stuff so well. And folks, if you want to know about law and the construction and engineering industry, go and have a listen to Sarah. And she actually, I think in your words, Val, took a really dry subject and made it quite interesting and fascinating.
I was being nothing but honest. Let's be clear. Law could be dry, but Sarah did a great job getting us interested and invigorated. I think as well, the next one, why independent project assurance is important. Lorraine Humphrey did exactly the same thing and talked about her experience in Transport for London and other projects and why assurance should be independent and why they are so important. And I got a lot out of that one as well.
Agreed. Next up was how to get the best out of your PMO with Lindsay Scott and Eileen Roden. I'm not going to give away too much on this, just that we spoke about poos and pots.
We did speak about poos and pots, and we had a bit of a debate too. So it's good to talk about PMO as it's a very malleable space. Next up, we did talk to Elizabeth Harron about effective stakeholder management and engagement. And I think this is really important for all projects. So there's a bit for everyone in this episode. Please go have a listen if you can.
Agreed, Val. And then America Pinto was up next with that storm over Rio and the audio issues in the beginning. But we got a lot of nuggets out of America and what he's doing with the PMO Global Alliance. And they're doing some fantastic work globally, as the name suggests.
Well done. We're looking forward to us being awarded something in the future, I'm sure. And the art of complex change management with Donnie McNichol was also interesting. I mean, again, change is such a fascinating subject matter, and it impacts all of us. And Donnie certainly knows his stuff.
Agreed. Continuing with that theme was Joe Lucas, rewilding organizations and minimal interference approach to delivering change. She spoke a lot about the mycelium.
I know. So if you haven't seen the fungal guy, you should check out him first. I think it's Stan Stamets. Check him out. And then we're followed by my good friend Dom Xiao, performance and resilience in projects. And geez, he was great. Just a great presenter, communicator, and he really talked about the importance of performance and resilience, especially during COVID. Just a fantastic storyteller.
Agreed. And then Matt Levy came along and humbled us with all of his feats at the Paralympics. Folks, there's some great anecdotes. Usain Bolt was in that one as well. So, well, he wasn't personally in that, but Matt spoke about when he met Usain, which was great as well.
Yeah, great. And then we get into digital transformation and the differences between PMO and project management. And I think Harris Apostolopoulos, hey, I did it. Did a really good job at explaining that to us and giving us a breakdown from his perspective and the projects he'd been on.
I think that's the first time you got a name correct, Val. Well,
I try. Getting better, mate.
And then, folks, episode 96, bang! This is Dr. Paul Jamalva and Yanni Saritman. If those of you that know those names have seen how active, well, Yanni is now, because Paul got cancelled from LinkedIn, and he tells his story why, which is quite interesting. But if you take that one aside, the competency-based training and benchmarking conversation was hugely insightful. So go and check that out on episode 96.
And episode 97, we talk about busting earned value management myths with Richard Loeb, which is great because he came in and talked about something that we really love talking about, Mockdale. We love being a bit of geek speak. If you want to know a little bit more about earned value in the detail, this is the one for you. The next one, can blockchain improve project delivery? Fred Shabesta. Fred Shabesta, the founder of Finder, he is a creative. He's an innovator. He was in New York when we spoke to him. It was great because he didn't actually go down the route we thought projects would in terms of using blockchain. He actually advised against it, which was a bit of a surprise. But he's a great guy, and he had some really good insights into how blockchain works and how to effectively manage it. But he also talked about databases, which is great.
Yeah, agreed. And then episode 99 with Mr. Paul Googe and Warren Beardall. Now, you missed that one, Val, but it was hugely philosophical, as the title suggests. And we went all over the show. We had amazing cricket analogies all the way through the entire episode. And we left it saying, actually, it was like the first innings or day one of a long test match. And we'll definitely have Paul and Warren back. And folks, just go and have a listen to that one, because I won't do it justice by picking out anything from that. So that's it, up to episode 99. We'll jump into the preamble now with Magda Robertson. She was lovely to have on, Val. Thank you for inviting her onto the show. And we spoke largely around transportation sector projects and, her career path and what to look out for. And it was good, again, just kicking the tires with Magda. But a bit about Magda. Magda is an accomplished senior leader with 20 years experience in the transport industry. That includes heavy rail, light rail, and buses, both in the public and private sectors. And she also spoke about franchising and what that means. But I wonder, can you draw out any of the highlights for you in episode 100?
Oh, it's fantastic. She's very passionate about transport, as you can tell, and she talks about the malleability of being in transport. You can be anyone. And that gave her the opportunity to do many roles, wear many hats. And then she starts to dive into some of the important factors, like how you improve projects and operations with the minutes, the marginal gains. But she talks about culture as well, which is fantastic. And her journey. She's done quite well. She's quite young, and now she's taking a role as COO in a rail program in New Zealand. So congrats to her for that. And we look forward to having a drink with her in New Zealand at some point.
Exactly. I'm jealous. But the other one I will add to what you've just said there is the man cave analogy she drops in. So listen out for that one, folks. But I guess all that's left for us to say is, like we've said it already, but enjoy the festive season with your loved ones and stay safe and enjoy this podcast.
Hello, project people. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the podcast. And yes, I am back. It's always great to have you with us. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, you should. And you should follow us and tap that button on your favorite podcast or YouTube player. Or if you prefer to watch us, obviously YouTube is the way to go. Leave us a rating or comment on Dale's haircut if you feel like it. Dale, my friend, how are you, sir? Doing well?
I'm very well, thank you. I haven't had a haircut. You haven't been away that long. Where were you? Do you care to share with the listeners where you were for the last episode?
No, I don't.
I didn't think so.
I got a hard boss. He's always driving me really, really hard. As my guest knows, he's very, very difficult to work with. But that brings us to our special guest, Dale. I'll get straight into it because we are time stricken with this favorite player of mine in the transport space, Magda Robinson. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Val. I'm well. And I've got to say, your boss is not hard, and just he's a liar, everyone.
He is. He is not. He's so lovely. He's a big teddy bear. Shout out to Michael Downing if you are listening, and you should be. And if you're not, we've got things to talk about. Let's get into the subject today, because obviously you've got a great career, and I've kind of been watching you, not in an awkward way, but just watching your career blossom over time. And I think it's great to know where people come from and where their beginnings are. So I always kind of start this off, in Dallas as well, learning about where people come from, how do they get into projects, what about projects makes it interesting for them, because it brings a very diverse set of people. It's not all the same people. But for you, Magda, where did it all start? How did you get into projects?
Yeah, it's a really super interesting question. I started my career in law enforcement back in the day. And then something incredible happened to the world. Incredible is probably a really bad choice of words, but something sort of tragic happened to the world, which was September 11th. And the state government of New South Wales had a mandate for better security on transport. And I found my way into transport. And I've got to say, Val and Dale, I hated my life for the first 6 months, because I went from a really sexy job in law enforcement to looking after trains. And it just didn't feel very cool. But I stuck it out. I stuck it out because when I'm in, I'm 100% in. And then I fell in love with transport. And I think a lot of people have the same story, which is kind of sad, because often when you talk to people, they always say, they ask you, how do you get into transport? And it's always sort of like an accidental career move, right? A lot of people have that story. And that was my story, but I fell in love with it. So I started with New South Wales Trains, incredible job, incredible organisation. I got to do, various roles within this complex organisation, starting from obviously security, going into infrastructure. And then I was blessed enough to go down to Melbourne and get into train operations. And that's where my life sort of with projects started. MTM were going through a huge level crossing removal programs, which I was blessed to be a part of. And then I went back to Sydney and moved on to Adelaide Metro, which was a first franchise for the trams. South Australian government franchised both the trams and the heavy rail. And I was blessed enough to work on the trams, set it up, take it over from government into private hands, private operator. And it was incredible. And now my next venture, my next project is Adelaide. Oh, my apologies. See, I'm so stuck on Adelaide.
It's a great state, great city.
It's just hard to give it up. It's just been such an incredible job to have. And now I'm moving on to Auckland One Rail. So that's another exciting project that we've got in the pipeline.
Fantastic. And yeah, it's interesting how people describe September 11 as a kind of pinnacle point of change for a lot of people. I think even myself, I was in the Navy, and I was thinking, patrol boats, fishing, but we were all sent over to be part of the deploy over there. So yeah, it's affected everyone in so many different ways, and it's great that you got to share that little highlight of your career path. And I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper on that query around trains in particular, because you've stuck it out for a while now. What is it about that specific subject matter or that particular technology or whatever it might be in there that really gets you going? Is it the people? Is it the types of work that you're doing? Is it a mixture? What's going on in there, Magda?
I think the thing that is really incredible about transport is it's a whole organic, complex entity. So, if you become a lawyer, you're a lawyer. If you become a doctor, you're a doctor. In transport, you can be anything, right? So you can be a lawyer, you can be an accountant, you can be an ops specialist, you can be a ticket inspector. It comes with a vast range of opportunities. And I think that's a good thing about transport, that really, entices people to get involved in this organisation. But I think for me, the really important thing is that it's a critical service, right? So if you look at water and electricity, it's an essential service. And with COVID, it really embedded the need for public transport and the reliance on the public for public transport. So when COVID hit and the pandemic started, I remember dialing into a STICO, and one of the critical conversations we're having with very, very important people in both New South Wales and the federal government was, we're not going to stop public transport, because you just can't stop public transport. Because if you think pandemonium is going to hit, it would hit when you tell people that public transport is going to stop, right? So that was never an option, which just shows the essential service that we provide. And the interesting thing is, when I did go out on the network during, the guts of the pandemic, whether it was 12 months ago or 6 months ago, when I looked at the patronage, it was just profound what I saw, because it was the vulnerable people of the community. It was the nurses, it was the police officers, it was the fireys, it was the people that really needed that service to get to the other critical services. And that was really important for me, because it made me feel like I'm part of something far bigger than myself. And that's pretty special, to be part of something that's legacy making and something that everyone relies on every day is incredible. That's what gets my blood boiling and juices flowing.
Yeah, we can tell you're definitely feeling it here in the studio. And I think this point of connection back to what you're doing as a job is more of a career, right? And you mentioned the malleability of having different roles within transport. That makes it kind of cool. You can be anything you want, which is quite 100%. Interesting for anyone who's not been in transport. They're like, it's just trains or trams or whatever. But actually, I agree with you, and I know Dale is nodding as well. There's something for everybody in transport, which is great. It's a very inclusive by default, I think, because you do need, we talked about it before, different types of hats. You need different types of personalities, cultures, people. What roles, you mentioned of your career in a bit of a span there, but what roles did you take in there? Did you take different roles, or were they similar in nature?
No, they were completely different. Security was very different to infrastructure, so with security, I was dealing with a lot of law enforcement, which I was very comfortable in, because that's the environment that I came from. So you were dealing with police, you were dealing with security guards, you were dealing with special services. I then moved into infrastructure, which is, I was dealing with engineers and electricians and really specialized people, very different culture, very different dynamic that I was dealing with. And you've got to bear in mind that I wasn't an engineer, so I was exposed to a whole different world where there was critical operations. So, for example, if there was a disruption, my guys were the ones responsible for switching the electricity off so police could go rescue people. So a very different world that I was exposed to, and it was a very different environment. So I had to learn a whole new level of skills, which is the beauty of transport, right? Because you don't have to be boxed into that one area, whether it's operations or security or infrastructure. Those skills you pick up, and the network is the network. So then I moved into train operations, which is dealing with the train controllers and the signalers. Again, I'm not a train controller, I'm not a signaler. Again, a new set of skills that I had to learn. But it's all about the right way to manage people. It's how you build a culture and how you build a workforce that who are essentially the SMEs, because you're no longer that SME. My SMEism, great word, my SMEism, stopped at the security point. When I moved into the other levels, I had to rely on SMEs, and it's how you build that culture and you rely on those people to do the right thing by you, but more so to do the right thing by the organization and the public who are traveling on those services.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think just from the sound of it, in your experience in law enforcement, you've got this, I guess, duty of responsible responsibleness. Is that a word? I don't know. We're doing isms now.
I like it. We're doing.
Let's just go with it. Yeah. But protecting as well, and I think transport as well. There's a lot of critical decisions that need to be made on a day-to-day basis, and I think that's maybe the synergy between law enforcement and what you're doing. And there is this contributing factor as well. It is a network. People are relying on it. I love that double essential piece. You got essential service people running on an essential service. That's exactly what's happening. And I think it's an amazing area to be in. If you've never thought about transport, you should think about it. One more question, and I know Dale's going to jump in soon. Is how did you? I guess with malleability, it's a great exercise if you're self-initiating, if you're a self-starter, if you've got some, I guess, ambition and confidence in your abilities. But for some people, they need structure, they need guidance. And I'm just going to talk about career progression for one, because just your career sounds very inspiring. What about those who are kind of listening in on you today, Magda? Not really sure because it is too malleable. There are too many options. It's like, well, which way do I go? Do I go this way? Would that give me like a better, more contribution, more enjoyment? Because again, it's about different people like different things. What do you suggest people should do if they're not really sure and they're in transport or they're in a stuck role? Maybe you've been in one as well. What could they do about that from your perspective?
You know, there comes a point in your career where you know it's time to go, and that's the point you really need to channel, and you've got to create your own opportunities. So, you know, I've often heard, I've never been one of those people, but when I worked for many organizations, you know, people often said to me, oh, you know, I was asked to apply for this job, I was tapped on the shoulder for this job. That stuff never happened to me, but you've got to take risks. And you've got to be in it to win it. I can tell you probably about 7 jobs I applied for that I never got. But you've got to put yourself out there. You know, you've got to take the risks. And if you're stuck and if you're not enjoying your job anymore, look for the next big thing. And when I say big thing, I'm not necessarily saying, you know, it's got to be a level up. It might mean a sea change. For example, you know, I did 17 years in Sydney Trains. I loved it. Incredible organisation. But, you know, I hit that ceiling. Where I kind of felt my potential has been tapped out. I got a really good reputation. You know, I was the fixer-upper. I solved problems. But then there comes a point where they're not looking for that person anymore. So my sea change was Melbourne, and it was probably the best thing I've ever done. Incredible city, incredible MTM, incredible organisation, and I learned a whole different level of skills. So you've just got to take risks and back yourself. Fake it till you make it. Because people around you that will support you if you don't have that answer. You've just got to back yourself.
That's awesome, Magda. If I can jump in there, I first comment just on your Australianisms. I think I'm getting a lesson here in how to speak Australian, but no, it's great. It adds to the show. While you're talking there, I was thinking of a book I read by Richard Branson called "Screw It, Let's Do It," and it's along the similar lines of just, you know, give it a go, and it applies to careers, not just business as well. And I'd add to that and say, yeah, go for it. But the more you actually throw yourself out there, actually you de-risk because you learn things along the journey. So yeah, I love the fact that you've put that out there. And yeah, folks, go and, you know, switch gears and try different things out. And you never know, you might just find something more interesting. But I do want to shift gears slightly from, I guess, more personal career challenges to more sort of public facing organizational challenges and things like that, because I'd imagine that a lot of the listeners listening to the Project Chatter podcast perhaps haven't worked in public facing organizations or sectors. And I wonder if we might just delve into how different the challenge is, rather than, you know, answering to, I guess, a boss or a CEO that, you know, is purely after profit margins and, you know, driving down hard on, you know, hit these targets, etc. What are there that's different, that makes public transport different to the private sector, and maybe that also adds to the spice of it, because it is a different view, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you've got to be mindful what the service that you're providing. So public transport is what it is. It's public transport. So and the beauty of that is it comes with those complexities. So you know, and particularly when you franchise them, so you still got those, you know, you've still got those profit margins. It is a business. For any government agency that thinks it's not a business and there is no profit margins, that's the mistake they're going to make, right? Because at the end of the day, someone's going to come along one day and say, well, what are you doing in this space, and how much is it costing us? Because if you take Adelaide as an example, you know, we took the business over nearly, it's coming up to a year and a half, 2 years maybe, and the vast amount of changes that we were able to implement, it just speaks volumes. So in the first, you know, a year and a half, we increased performance by 19%. We're smashing the KPIs. The budget, we're making money. something the government wasn't doing. So although it is a public transport, it's still an organisation, and I'm going to keep saying it. That is the beauty of it, because we need lawyers. We need to lawyer up, because we're a public service provider. People trip, slip, and fall. People are always suing us, not in a bad way, because things happen. It's an organisation. Engineers, look at engineers. We need engineers because we're build staff. We're constantly building staff, whether it's renewing bridges or removing level crossings or enhancing platforms. We're building stuff. It's just so exciting. So if you want to get down and dirty, you don't want to just be, a research engineer. You want to do stuff. Incredible organisation to get into. But we are for profit. So, you can't lose sight of that, which is the beauty of it, because what happens when the government franchises is the performance lifts. We run it like a business. How do we enhance the network? What is it that we can provide to the customer? Value proposition. What is it the customer's getting? Yeah, I want to get on my train, tap on, read my book, get on my iPhone. But there's other stuff. I want to have Wi-Fi. I want to be comfortable. I want to hear announcements. I want to explore the city. I want to know where the hubs are. I want to get off that train and get on, on a light rail, or I want to catch a bus. I want to get on the ferry. There's a lot of expectations, and that's the beauty of it, because transport is so rapidly changing. Uber is just one of the 5 years ago of what's happened to transport. That is so 80s now. So, it's just so rapid the way we're changing with technology. It's just a phenomenal world to get into.
Yeah, and maybe that's the missing trick, right? No, it's great. Like I'm saying, maybe that's the missing trick, is that some organizations don't run themselves like businesses, and so that's perhaps where they fail. But I just wanted to, I guess, peel the layers on that one a little bit further. How prevalent are the political constraints and challenges when you're public facing? If the mayor of a city comes out and promises something without, real data and information, and now you've got to deliver against that potentially, or there's, funding constraints or whatever the case may be. How difficult is it to navigate around that?
Well, the beauty of franchising is there's a contract. So if the man wants to promise something, that's awesome, because that's a contract variation for us. Look, there's a lot of things that people can say, and for example, and this is hypothetical, if the mayor said, better services, on time running, better connectivity, that stuff is essentially quite easy for us to explore. So if someone makes a promise, what does that promise look like? Is it safe for trams? Awesome. Let's look at technology. How do I put more CCTV in? How do I, do motion sensors? There's some incredible stuff out there. For example, we were looking at our stations, and are they safe? Well, there's incredible CCTV where, if someone jumps off the platform onto a track, there's sensor motions. So if people make comments like that, for a transport operator, it's easy for us to take that and go, well, there's a promise, let's deliver it. How do we do it? It's not hard. There's incredibly smart people in transport, transport planners, which are the guys that plan the trains and do the timetables. I'm making it sound very simplistic, but, there's ways to improve efficiency, because if there wasn't, there wouldn't be a contract in place. And part of that 8-year contract is to keep improving that customer experience. It's easy done. I would make it work.
Awesome, fantastic. And you mentioned it a few
times. No one hears this.
Nah, we'll edit nothing out, so it's all there. Everyone can hear it. It's all recorded.
Awesome.
You've mentioned a few times franchising, and I wonder if we peel back some of the layers on franchising and why government might go into franchising in various I guess countries, what the benefits are, the pitfalls, the various constraints around that, if you don't mind.
It's good. It's a good question. I've managed. This is probably going to be my 3rd franchise contract that I've been involved in. I don't necessarily see a lot of pitfalls. I'm again going to lean on Adelaide. it is a very solid contract. The government gives you an amount of money annually to provide a service. What you do between that and what you deliver is entirely up to you. So if you want to stand out as an organisation, you're going to hit the road running. And that's exactly what we did at Torrens Connect in Adelaide. You know, we reduced slip, trips and falls, category B incident reporting. We reduced all the incident reports that we've had. Mean distance failure, which is the distance a tram travels before it obtains a fault, we increased the percentage to 360,000 kilometres, which means it went from 9,000 to 360. We improved it by 360% to 55,000 kilometres. You know, that is incredible. And all that is an asset management system that we introduced, and we started doing maintenance better. It's not rocket science. For government, it is probably the right way to go, because the risk is then with the provider. So the risk is with us. And we have this incredible opportunity to improve a service and provide a service that's a better value for money. You know, I make it sound very simplistic, but when you actually, like you say, Dale, when you actually peel back the layers, it's not complicated. It's just improving the timetable, improving the experience. There's little things that you can do, very low-lying fruit that you can pick and go, damn, that works. For example, you know, priority lighting for light rail trams. It's something that wasn't really explored in Adelaide, and we did it, and we reduced, you know, some of our headache areas, some of our traffic points by 19%, because we went to TMC, Traffic Management Centre, and said, can we have priority lighting around these sections? So although I'm making sound, you know, very easy, but when you actually go down to it and you think about it, and you get the smart people in the room talking, it is really easy. And for government, it makes sense because, you know, we are the professionals, and we run it like a business. So we're in the game to, 1, improve the service, 2, make money, 3, enhance it through the projects and through the contracts. So we're the ones that bring the smarts. And I'm not certainly having a go or saying the government doesn't have smarts. We just, particularly when you take, you know, UGL, we're backed by a huge organisation that has so many smart people, innovation, technology, that will come to you and say, hey, Max, what are you doing in this space? Because we've just built this. Do you want to have a look at it? I'm like, yeah, I didn't swear.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, it's all about just, you know, being backed by huge global organizations and letting people just guide you the way forward.
No, I would agree with that. And, you know, you need to use horses for courses. And if you are better equipped to deliver something, then government should take advantage of it, right? Because end of the day, it ends up actually costing them less doing it properly. Absolutely. With an organization that actually knows how to deliver. And before we hit record, you said you also wanted to, I just got one more before I hand back to Val. You wanted to touch on how to move organizations from sort of this public to private type of entity and the challenges therein. And I don't know if we're going to open a can of worms here, but I guess we could go down all sorts of things from culture, leadership, all sorts of various aspects. But where would you start?
Oh, that's a very good question. Where do you start, you know? Pandemic. So, you know, when UGL and John Holland won Adelaide, you know, it was right in the guts of the pandemic. It's like, where do you start? We were just locked out. We were locked out of Adelaide. Everyone was locked out of South Australia. So it was very hard to build that trust with the staff. And they were all government staff. You know, we have people that have been tram operators for 40 years. So where do you start? You know, you start by just being really transparent and being really honest and connecting with people. And, you know, and we did it. We had one person that was able to fly into Adelaide and started connecting with people. And we were just so open with our dialogue, and we were just so, you know, it wasn't that there was no options. These are government employees that always have options because there's always redundancy. But we were so open with the concept of the joint venture and the benefits to coming on board with a new franchise. You know, if you talk to some of the staff now, and it's simple things like that we fix, you know, payroll. For example, if someone had an issue with their pay, it didn't take 3 weeks to fix it. It took an hour to fix it. We build trust through the leadership team and through the mobilisation team. And, you know, 92% of staff came over purely for the fact that we were able to build a vision and tell them a story of how to put Adelaide back on the map. And they had this opportunity to be part of that movement. So when you paint a picture to people and you tell them, well, what's the vision for the next 10 years? You bring them on a journey. And I know that sounds so 80s, but you get them on that journey and you build, you know, you build rapport. And you've got to visualize with them and what because the first thing they always say to us is like, well, who are you and what's your plan? Are you going to like slash 50 tram drivers? No, we're going to enhance services. We want to build more trams. We want to run an additional line to, you know, McGill. So that gets them excited because one, we have the ability to build, the funding to do it, and the people to come and do it. So it's a bit, you know, it is hard because it was such a unionized workforce, but the beauty of a franchise is, you know, that we have the ability to do things outside the scope. We're not a public service where we're not so bureaucratic. And it was a really beautiful journey for these people, because I think if you looked at the culture that we've got today and the culture that they had 2 years ago, very different ball game.
That's awesome. And, you know, being an Adelaide boy, thank you for making my city better or great again. Can I say that? No, I will anyway.
If you get a cap, you can.
I haven't been there for like 2 years. It's really bad. I want to go visit my family, but I will one day. So hang in there, guys. That was great. And I want to lift the cap on some of the things you mentioned, because I'm a how guy, Magda. I want to know how things are done. I'm a tinkerer. Sometimes it doesn't work out for me, but I'd love to know, you mentioned kind of improvements, and it's probably a depends question, but how did you go about kind of eating the elephant? You can't obviously eat it all at once. There was all these multiple things that needed improving. You mentioned this kind of 360% gain or improvement. How do you go about doing that? Obviously, you get smart people in a room, but you need to herd cats in a way, because smart people tend to be the hardest to get together. You know, they are opinionated, they have strong beliefs, they got good experience. Having intelligent people in the room can be almost a stifling factor, but what's your tactic?
You know, it's kind of learn and adapt. So some of that stuff that you will always do at the next organization, you've already trialed and tested in the previous organizations, right? So one of the things that we did was when you look at the thing with transport, you've got to have an incredible asset management system, because you're dealing with a lot of rolling stock and a lot of infrastructure. And, you know, coming from a world of Sydney and Melbourne, that stuff we do really well, because you've got, you know, if you look at New South Wales, you've got nearly 1,000 kilometres worth of track, you know, overhead wires. So it's simple stuff like that. That we go, well, what's your asset management system? What did we promise in the bid? Because the bid work has got to be promising stuff, right? So a lot of that stuff's done way before you get to the ground, way before you win the bid. So this is a whole bid paperwork that goes in, that's 800 pages long, that you've promised the government you're going to deliver. So we do a lot of homework even before you even get the contract signed, sealed, and delivered. But then if you look at the workforce and you walk into the maintenance area and you go, wow, you guys, how do you do stuff? You know, people are very willing to share. And if you say to people, for example, I want to use a very, very simple analogy. You know, you walk into a man cave, and you've got, you know, in a man cave, there's tools, there's stuff. Essentially, we walked into a man cave and there's tools and stuff, but nothing had a place for it. So you watch one guy go in and look for his hammer for 20 minutes, but the other guy's already taken it. So we're 20 minutes is my money. That's a lot of money in that 20 minutes. If two people are looking for it, that's 40 minutes. So how do you simplify a workforce and make it just a leaner workforce and a more smarter, you know, there's my hammer, there's a tag, David's got it, I've got it. Dave, where's the hammer? I've returned it. You know, it's all that simple stuff to get right. How do you do it? We've done that. We're doing that. certain organizations, if I could take stuff out of Sydney Trains, MTS and MTM, they've all got good things they're good at. You've learned because you've gone through, I've been in transport 20 years. I've picked up some stuff. So you're just taking that stuff to the next place and say, you know what, I saw someone do something a lot better and a lot quicker. Let's try it.
And I think, we've touched on it before. Sorry?
I've got to say coffee shops could use that, because so often I go into my coffee shop and just to order a latte, no special milk, and the 20 pounds they press, and I just sit there going, surely you can find a better way of doing that. Have you ever done that?
In Adelaide, it's bad. I don't know. I've been there for coffee, and the speed. Melbourne's great, right? Melbourne, for those that know, get a coffee. It's like it's there. It's piping hot. It's ready to go. But other places, there's some time to improve it. Is that a side hustle, Magda, that you're thinking about doing?
No, but it's just
coffee optimization.
I'm one of these people that I'm always looking for efficiency. So, when I stand at a coffee shop and this girl used to do this every morning, and I think I counted 7 buttons she's got to press before I can go, being I've paid. I felt like one day, surely there's one button it's a latte. Let's find a button. Let's talk to your providers of your little pad and find a button, because
where's your supervisor? This is Magda, I think, why we're kindred spirits, because I'm very similar. It'll be ordering a meal and I watch what happens to a docket. It'll be done on a piece of paper, then they talk to each other, then it goes to the kitchen, then the kitchen goes off somewhere else with it. And you watch all these steps and you're like, are they really necessary? And it brings me back to Dale and I were talking about this. We've talked about it a few times. This 1% marginal gain focus is just like, you don't have to transform everything, but you just make little changes here and there, and they have a compound effect, a positive compound effect over time. And it tends to be the easier way to do it. It used to be kind of jazzed up, I guess, as continuous improvement, but I just call it common sense, just simplifying things to the basic needs. So what do we need to do here to finish there? And what are the steps involved? And there's other terms like day in the life of, and it seems like you innately have this ability already, and you probably take it for granted that you can just spot this pattern that's happening in projects. But for some people, it's very difficult for them to see, and it can be overwhelming as well. You're like, there's too much to do, and you're like, whoa, step back. What do you need to do to get from here to there? And it's refreshing to hear that there's someone else in transport making it happen, Magda. I really appreciate that. The other thing I was going to say is, you've had some great career successes, and do you think some of that's related to the way you organize people, or do you think it's because of your technical? And I think you kind of gave the clue before, but do you think it's communication? Is it soft skills that have helped you in your career more than, let's say, technical or specific SME-isms in your career?
I think it's a combination of both. And I think at a very different level, depends where you are with your career. It kind of fluctuates and it changes. I think you need to know your stuff, but at the end of the day, when you get a certain level, you've got to. It's like that movie, build it and they will come, and that's really what it is with leadership. You've got to foster a culture where people will just want to do stuff without you having to micromanage them. It is a blend of both. I think as you progress through career, those soft skills become very paramount, because you don't only have a team to lead, but you have a client to manage as well. On top of that, you've got multiple boards that you've got to report to. So it's definitely your ability to win friends and influence people. Let me tell you.
That sounds like a book right there.
Yes. Have you read it? It's good.
I think it's one of Dale's favorites, actually. Yeah, it's on the bookshelf. A few people have actually mentioned it when we've had the podcast, and they said, that's one of the books they go to a lot. Obviously I don't win friends because Dale told you before we press record that he's not my friend, so you know how it is. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is you mentioned user experience and the user journey and customer experience, and it's very rare that I hear people in projects talk about that, even because sometimes the projects are that big, right, Magda, that you're not at the coal face, you're not really talking to the client. We've seen this as well, Dale, Transport for London. So you don't see the connection. And for you, it's just a day-to-day job, a grind. And I've seen people think of it like that. How do you get people to refocus on the customer experience, and what does that mean, customer experience?
Well, it kind of matters, and I don't think there's an entity in transport that doesn't actually link back to a customer experience, which is for me, it's that point-to-point trip where, for example, Dale, when you get on your London Underground, it's that point from the point you enter and the point you leave that nothing happens. That's what you want, right? You don't want anything to happen. You want your 6 minutes, or in London, maybe 32. Want that 32
We're getting better.
you want those minutes to have nothing happen. You just want to stay on your phone, read your book, stay on your laptop, and you don't want anything to happen. Or you do. And you've got to know your customer base, right? And everything that happens in transport is linked to that. So whether it's that engineer that's building that platform, it's critical to the customer, because if he builds a different spec and someone in a wheelchair then has to have a ramp, well, that costs me about 3 minutes in my timetable for the crew to come out, put the ramp up, for someone that should have the ability to get on the tram without any hassle. So everything links back. So when a train controller makes the decision on the day that is the wrong decision, then, for example, I'll use an example. We had a medical incident and they held the tram on the platform for 6 minutes when they could have put it in a siding and let the ambos come on board. And the guy said to me, but it's only 6 minutes. I was like, it's only 6 minutes for you. But the people on board that tram have now missed their bus and they've got to wait an additional 20 minutes. So now it's 26 minutes. Now that bus then misses the other connection, or maybe car parking, or the nanny. Now the nanny's got to stay an extra 26 minutes, which, by the way, is $50 for me. So not only have you cost me an additional 26 minutes, but you've cost me money, because now I've gotten that bus and my nanny's got to stay an extra half an hour. So you've got to paint a picture of these people, because every decision they make impacts the people that are using the service. I don't care who you are. If you're the accountant, it matters, because the supplier is not getting paid because you forgot to pay that supplier on Friday. But that supplier is the guy that gives us the tickets or gives us the chip for the microcards. It all makes sense. And you've just got to paint that picture to everyone. You've got to remind them that at the end of the day, it is a service and there's a customer at the end. So when I go into Kmart, I want to have a nice experience. I want to hear music and I want someone to smile at me. We're all product users, and that's what people do with public transport. They use a product.
That's so lovely to hear. And I don't think anyone's really explained it like that before in transport. And you're right. There is this extended journey that people forget. It's just people getting on and off. I remember being in London actually, and they have pretty good service. So it's like a train every 2 minutes. And this guy was losing it because he missed the train. I was like, mate, there's a train like another minute. But for whatever reason, right, for him, that could be a completely different experience. He's going to miss a job interview, or his wife's giving birth, or whatever it is. So it is really important to factor those stories in. And I think maybe there is a level of responsibility to project managers and projects in general to share more of the end stories. Like, we are doing this because here's a why story. This old granny, she's going to be able to get on, visit her husband in hospital who's recovering. These stories that make us human again. I think someone on our show, can't remember who, Dale, was talking about humanizing projects again, making that connection real again. And I think you've just brought that back and invigorated again, Magda. I appreciate that. One more for me, because this is more technical. You mentioned kind of how you would kind of eat this elephant, or tackle this elephant. We talked about asset management. Now, I find this very intriguing, because I feel like asset management it's becoming the new rock star, if you like, particularly with technology, digital engineering, what we're doing with visualizations. Asset management is working very closely with project controls and PMO and the project management team. What's your views on asset management now and where you see it in the future?
Oh, I think asset management is super sexy. You're right, it is a rock star. So, you've got things like MTS, automated trains. I mean, that's an incredibly sexy thing that's out there, right? And that's just, that's built on assets and it's run by a computer. and how you manage that asset and how you do maintenance on that asset, and how you let's start how you build it. You know, it's got to be built the right way. This is incredible stuff. This is just stuff that is, you know, 22nd century. But if you look at things, you know, if you look at Canberra Light Rail or you look at Adelaide Light Rail, very two different asset management type of entities, right? Canberra, very glitz and glamour, brand new, shiny. Then you've got Adelaide, which is, you know, diamonds and pearls. And I know which one I'd prefer because it's more value, but you've got an asset that's 100 years old. How do we modernize that asset? What are we going to do to that? I've got parts of tracks that are 100 years old. You know, how do we bring all that modernization and all those, you know, condition monitoring things, but put it on a really old infrastructure? This is really incredible stuff. And this is where the project team needs to come and go, this is how we do it, Max. This is how we're going to do it. You know, one of the other things that we're not talking about is sustainability. You know, with one of the biggest carbon footprints. How do we deal with that? Because although we move mass people, how do we make it a bit more sustainable for the environment? And I think that's the next thing that's going to make assets really sexy, because I think it's in that technology that we're going to be able to do that. You know, there is stuff out there. Automation is awesome, and obviously that will lower the carbon footprint, but I've still got drivers that are driving those trams. And how do we make that a more sustainable, you know, service for the communities? I love it. I think there's so much in that space that's being done. There's so much incredible research being done, whether it's universities or engineers. It is the new norm, and an asset leads, you know, it's also the rolling stock. Look what's happened in Sydney, the tram cracking. You know, who got that wrong? That's an incredible asset that, you know, it's been slowly cracking. And how do we prevent that from happening again? Because there's a bit of to and fro. Was it the tram or was it tracks? Was it the egg or the chicken? Let's solve it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And your energy is great. And I'll hook you up with Zero Construct as well. They're just down that route. They're just kicking off now. They'll be on the show next year, but they've got some great things that they're trying to move forward in the sustainability section of transport. And they want to be a very collaborative movement. And I just absolutely support that as well. So I'm glad you said it as well, Magda. Dale, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Val. Just a couple of comments, I guess, Magda, on that. You know, everything that you and Val were discussing there rings true and sings along with responsible project management. We spoke to Dr. Karen Thompson and Nigel Williams, and indeed Dave Corbin as well, around responsible project management. I just signed the charter as well the other day. So, you know, there's 10 items along that. They're trying to start this movement in the UK, and hopefully it spreads globally, because it is considering not just, you know, what impacts you, but what impacts the next person. And
100%.
Along the lines of not only cost impacts, but environmental, sustainability, well-being, the works, all of those bits add up and give you the final end product, as you're saying. And then the other thing I'd throw in about why improving transport is also quite sexy is because often people don't realize you're doing it on a live operational railway system or network. It's not something that you can just stop. People still need to get from A to B while you're upgrading or while you're improving. And that is a different challenge to when you've got a greenfield or brownfield site where there's nothing else happening potentially, and you just, you know, you have full access. You have a very small window to make these improvements. And I think that isn't always appreciated as well. So everyone in the transport sector, thank you so much for everything you do, because it's hugely, hugely challenging. But look, Magda, we do have to make a little bit of time for our feature, because we are a little bit strapped for time, and it's a little bit of fun at the end. And our first one is called Defend the Indefensible. Now, basically, you have to argue for the statement, and you only have 30 seconds, so it's not a lot of time. So are you ready?
Go.
Awesome. Okay, so your statement to defend, so argue for, is governments should avoid franchising.
Governments should avoid franchising, because then they're going to get stuck with people like Magda. And why would you want to get stuck with people like Magda? Why would you want Magda in your face every other week on a subcommittee, on a committee, telling you how wonderful it is when you franchise. I mean, who wants to hear that stuff? No one's going to want to hear that stuff. So keep it in government hands and keep losing money. That's what I say. I think that's a great thing to do. Keep it, get the unions. I'm a unionist by heart. So keep the unions in the job, keep everyone in the job. And then you just eliminate people like Magda, because God, she can go on and on and on and on and on.
Fantastic. Awesome, Magda. You're such a great sport. I loved it. You gave it your full go as well. And you went past 30 seconds, which is fantastic. Right. Our next one is called Fiverr, a quick pop quiz all about yourself. Quick fire questions. Are you ready?
Go.
Question 1, early mornings or late nights?
Early mornings, love it.
Question 2, what are the 3 must-have behaviors you look for in successful project teams?
Oh, that's a really good one. Collaboration, professionalism, and innovation.
Nice. Question 3, what is the best book you've been gifted?
1,000 Splendid Suns.
Nice. Question 4, what advice would you give your 10-year-old self?
Oh, geez, that's a tough one, isn't it? You know what? I keep doing what you're doing. I had fun and I was a good kid, and every job I've had fun. Keep doing it. And just watch Star Wars more often, because you don't get to as an adult. It really sucks. Try and get the kids in it, but.
Fantastic. Watch Star Wars more often. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Question 5, Magda. If you could choose one person to be stuck with in a lift, who would it be and why?
Oh, it definitely Val, because he stood me up on a drink last time. It just annoyed me, and hopefully we'd have a cocktail in that lift. So I feel like Val and I missed out on our cocktail time in Adelaide. So.
Oh yeah, you remember. That's so sad. I'm so sorry. I'll catch you in New Zealand. How's that?
Please, you owe me one.
I do.
Val has a long list of owing lots of people, lots of things. But anyway, not least our listeners for last episode, but we won't hold that against you, Val. Magda, you've been such a great sport. Thank you so much for your time. Before we let you go, are there any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
No, thank you. It's been incredible. You guys are super fun, but if anyone's out there and they have kids and they want to look for a career, please consider transport, because you can be anyone and everyone. And it's such an incredible journey. You can stay in for life, or you can do whatever you want. It's incredible.
Fantastic. And if you find it difficult and you're in the industry, look up Magda Robertson. She finds it very, very easy. Val, 100%. Val, any final thoughts from you?
No, I'm just going to get some credits from Mr. Michael Downing so I can shout Magda some drinks, but I'm looking forward to catching up, and thanks for your time today. It was great. A lot of energy and inspiration, and as usual, always impressed. So thanks for your time, Magda.
Thank you, gentlemen. I loved it.
Awesome, folks. That's all the time we have. If you like what you've heard, remember you can pay it forward by sharing a link to this episode on your social media. A massive thank you once again to our guest, Magda Robertson, and thank you all for listening. Till next time, we say stay safe, be disruptive, and have fun doing it. From me and Val, it's bye for now.